So I'm going to give you 6 things to avoid here. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to avoid. Okay. So 6 things to avoid. And then I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to absolutely avoid, the mother load of things to avoid, the hairiest thing to avoid of all. All right. Because let me tell you, when you are dealing with narcissists, toxic people, there actually are a number of things to avoid. All right. So I'm going to help you out here for sure. There's just so many times that it's like you're dealing with a landmine when it comes to narcissists. All right. And I know because I've dealt with them in my personal life as well. And that's why I'm on this mission. I'm on this crusade. I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the United States. I've written a couple of best-selling books, but I'm here giving you free advice every single day because I want you to have the information in your hands. So if you want that too, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And by the way, if you're looking for ways to disarm that narcissist, free phrases, free responses, how to respond, you don't know how to put it into emails, you don't know how to put it into text messages, you don't know what to say, I've got those responses for you. Just go to disarmthenarc.com, disarmthenarc.com. I've got those free phrases for you, disarmthenarc.com. All right, so number 1, don't try to change their mind. Don't try to change their mind. All right, because you're never going to do that. Once they get it in their mind that they are going to do something, then that's it. You might be able to change their mind in other ways, but if you head on try to change it, they're going to dig their heels in and be super, super stubborn. To change a narcissist's mind, you've got to kind of plant seeds and sort of let them kind of come to their own conclusions and let them sort of think that it was their idea. You can't head on let them think that you're changing their mind, because if you do, they'll never, ever change it. So number 1, that's one thing. And I'm working my way up to the mother load thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person. All right. The second thing to avoid is don't ever try to get them to acknowledge anything you ever did for them, or, your accomplishments or anything like that, because they're never going to do that. They will never acknowledge that. And by the way, if you are negotiating with a narcissist, don't think that early on you are generous and say, you know what? I'm going to give them this thing, I'm going to throw in this thing that I know that they want, or I know is something that I'm entitled to, but I'm going to give it to them because then they'll see how generous I am. And then everything's going to get resolved earlier because they're going to see how nice I am, how generous I am. They don't. They either, number 1, think that they're entitled to it. So they're like, no, you're not being generous. That was mine to begin with, or I was entitled to that to begin with. Or number 2, they just take it. They basically just throw it to the side and just go, yeah, and your point is what? I want more. They don't ever go, yeah, you did this thing, or yeah, that's great what you did for that. They just don't. They don't acknowledge you. They don't see what you've done for them. It doesn't become kind of like, this chip that you did early on, this great sort of generosity accomplishment that you got early on. It doesn't happen like that, unfortunately. So don't think that you're going to do that early on and get some kind of goodwill for it. Okay. So that's the second thing. The third thing that you want to avoid when you are talking to a narcissist or a super negative person is thinking that you're going to get closure. A lot of people just want that closure. They want that bow that tied up. Hey, we had a great thing. Let's wish each other well. Let's know that it was all good. And, going forward, let's be on good terms and all those things. That's what I thought when I was wrapping things up with a person in my life that I had a business relationship with. I thought that I could do that and leave it all on good terms and have some kind of closure with it, talk it through. It doesn't work that way with narcissists. They're not capable of it. No matter what you do, even if they wanted to end the relationship, they still end up taking it personally, that you were okay with it, that you're walking away from it. Even if you didn't want to walk away from it, they still end up looking at you as an enemy, no matter what. If you're not for them, then you're against them. You're not going to get that closure. You're still going to end up being public enemy number one. It's not going to feel fair. It's still going to be awful. You're not going to get that. So don't think that. Avoid talking to them about that. Avoid thinking that you're going to get that nice little neat bow at the end of that. Just avoid that conversation. Avoid trying to have that closure conversation, because you're not going to get the thing that you think that you're going to. And in fact, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than anything, because whatever you say or do will end up being used against you no matter what, because they will end up saying and twisting things that you do. Okay, so which leads me to the next thing, which is don't argue with them, because when you argue with them, then you will end up getting into that quicksand with them. And, that's exactly what they want you to do when you argue with them. Now you're getting into the thick of it. And, I remember, some of the narcissists that I've known, they'd be like, yeah, now we're getting into it. Now we're having a conversation. They actually enjoy that. They get off on it. They get a high on it. And you are out of your realm, because especially if you are, an empath, and you think that you are going to get to a resolution, you think that you are covering ground, you think that you are getting to an end point. You are not. They are trying to just keep you spinning your wheels. They're just, yanking your chain, spinning your yarn, and it ends up costing you money, costing you time, costing you energy, your mental health, your soul, the whole thing. You are just arguing with them, and they're just getting narcissistic supply out of the deal. You're going nowhere. So that is just one of those things that you really need to avoid. And by the way, I've gone through 4 things so far. I still haven't gotten to the number 1 thing that you need to avoid, by the way. Okay. These are just other things that you need to avoid. There's still not even the number 1 thing that you need to avoid. Have you figured out what the number 1 thing is yet? Haven't even gotten to it yet. These are all just other things that you need to avoid. All right. The next thing that you need to avoid, which is still not the number 1 thing, but is a 5th thing that you need to avoid, is definitely avoid defending yourself. Do not defend yourself. Do not go, I didn't do that. That's not me. Are you kidding me? You think that I did that? What are you saying? I'm not a horrible person with money. I don't steal. I'm not a child molester. I don't do. What are you saying? How can you accuse me of that? Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. I don't beat children. I don't do, I'm not a horrible mother or a deadbeat dad. Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. They want you to get into it with them, right? They want you to say those things because that is where they get you down into it again, right? Arguing with it. They pull you into that quicksand. They pull you into that mud, right? They start going down into it. Oh, you bought a dog that was a designer poodle or a designer this or that. And you're like, what? I got the dog at the pound and I can prove it. And then there you are defending yourself. Don't go down the path. Don't do it. When you defend yourself, you're agreeing that there is an issue. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is say, I deny what you're saying. No, there's no merit to what you are saying. There's so much more merit in short things. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Just the facts. Stay strong. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. Stay strong. Stay strong. You can do it. And by the way, still haven't gotten to number one. Still haven't gotten to number one, which is what I'm going to do right now. Are you ready for number one? The number one thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person, the number one thing, which I've kind of alluded to here so far, but I haven't actually come out and said it yet. The number one thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist is do not take their bait. Do not take their bait because they're going to give you a lot of it. They're going to pull it out and they're going to reel you in like that, like you are some kind of fish on their hook. And then there you are coming in like that. And like they hooked you like a fish. Okay. And dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Like everything you say or do is going to end up being used against you, right? And you don't want to have to deal with that. And this is whether you're dealing with it in a case, a court case, or any kind of situation. It can be any kind of a negotiation or anything. Okay, so we're going to go through the top 5 mistakes that people make when dealing with narcissists. And I've seen these when people are negotiating with narcissists and also in dealing with them. And I've also made them myself in dealing with the narcissists that I've had to deal with. I had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists in my personal life as well, one in a business setting and one in a family setting. The one I'm saving for last is the reason why I really wanted to make this video. Okay, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so number one is do not make the mistake of falling into the trap of their future faking. They will future fake you. They will make you think that they've changed. What happens is you will leave. You will maybe come back. You will think that they have changed. They have not changed. Okay. Do not think that they have changed. Do not fall for that. Do not come into thinking that they may have changed. I have interviewed people on this. I have talked to people on this. You can listen to my interviews on this. You can talk to people on this. Don't think that they have changed. They have not changed. Unfortunately, they just don't. So don't fall for that. That's one of the top 5 mistakes that we make is falling for the future fake, thinking they may have changed when they have not. Don't fall for it. You know what future faking is, right? It's like things are going to be better now, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like a love bomb, but it's already happened. Like you're already in the relationship. And when you're trying to hold them accountable for something and them saying, oh, things are going to be different now thing, don't look in the past, look to the future. Don't think that they're going to change. They won't. It's all a manipulation. Okay. Number 2 is don't think that you're going to get closure from them. You're not going to. Okay, just forget about it. I thought that I was going to be able to get closure in my relationship with the business narcissist. And you can't. I thought that I was going to be able to have a nice, amicable relationship going forward. You can't. And I've seen people fall prey to this many times as well. And you're just not going to be able to do that. As much as you try to wrap things up in a nice little bow and move forward nicely, they're just not capable. They're just too wounded. And so as much as you think that you're going to try to get that closure, you're going to have to get your own closure. Just knowing that you can move forward, knowing that you are healed, knowing that you are going to be a better person from everything that you're learning from this situation, that's the closure that you're getting. The next big mistake that we make in dealing with narcissists is hoping for acknowledgement from them and thinking that you're going to maybe get acknowledgement for anything that you contributed to the relationship, because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get acknowledgement from them. They're not going to say, oh yeah, you're right, you did a good job, or oh yeah, you're right, you contributed to my career, or yeah, you helped me in that situation, or you made my life better in this way. You're not going to get that. They're not going to make it seem like, sure, you get to take credit for anything. In fact, if anything, they're going to make it look like you're the problem. I have a whole video on that, 5 ways that they actually try to make you look like the problem. And you can check out my video on that. So they're definitely not going to give you credit for anything. And so we make this mistake of thinking, try to give me credit for this, try to acknowledge me. And if I could just talk to you one more time, if I could just get you to see, stop banging your head against that wall. Banging your head against a brick wall would actually be more satisfying. That's the next big, huge mistake. And if you agree with me so far, give me a totally in the comments. All right. And the next one is expecting any kind of loyalty whatsoever. You're not going to get any kind of loyalty. The only loyalty that they have is to the highest bidder for their supply. You know that they need an endless amount of narcissistic supply. That they're going to go to wherever the best form of supply is that they can get. And so that's where they're going to go. I mean, they're going to go to wherever they can get it. They're like vultures. So if down the road there is a better form of it, that's where they're heading. I mean, they're not going to have loyalty toward you if there's a better form of supply somewhere else. So you can't take that personally, because it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It only has to do with them. Okay, you ready for the last one? This is really the reason why I wanted to do this video. I was actually going to maybe just do the video on just this topic. I was actually thinking about maybe just doing it on the one big mistake that we make with narcissists. But then I thought, well, there's so many. So I decided I didn't mention the other ones. But this is really one that I see so often in negotiating that I thought I have to mention this one. Okay. And that is thinking any sort of like this gratuitous giving is going to garner some sort of favor down the road. It doesn't. Okay. So if you think that you're negotiating with them in some way, and that giving them something on the front end is going to get you something on the back end, you're like totally kidding yourself, because it's not. They're just going to take it and like, oh, okay, great. And your point is what? It's like, it's done. They have it and that's it. And now they want more. So what I see a lot of times is people will say, well, I'm going to show them how nice I'm being, because I'll show them I don't want any part of their retirement, or I'll show them that I won't touch this, or I won't ask them for support, or whatever, giving up leverage. And then they just take that, and then they realize down halfway into the case that they're like, it didn't help at all. The narcissist is being horrible and horrendous. anyway. And now they've given up that leverage. Now they wish they hadn't been that way. Or they didn't hire the good lawyer, or they didn't get a custody agreement done at the beginning like their lawyer told them to, or whatever it was that they didn't do because they thought that this gratuitous giving will garner some sort of favor for them down the road. It doesn't. It's a big lie. It's a big fat waste of time. They will not honor agreements. They'll just take, and they will not see that and acknowledge that. And you're just going to end up feeling used and abused. Let me just tell you, if they were a lying, denying, horrible spouse, they're not going to be better during the divorce. And by the way, this goes for if you're breaking up in a business relationship or any kind of a relationship. This is a massive mistake that I see with people, that somehow you think that if you show them how nice you are, that they're going to see that and that you'll be rewarded for that. You won't. Don't fall into that trap. You got to take care of yourself. You got to do what you have to do to end up at fair. And don't feel guilty for that. Do what you have to do to take care of yourself. Do what you have to do to take care of your family if you have kids. Narcissists terrorize you in lots of different ways, but they terrorize you especially when you get into a car. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? They love to do that because you're in a confined area and now you can't go anywhere. And so all the supply is for them and them alone. Remember, they love to manipulate you. They love to see you squirm. They love to control you, to degrade you, to get that supply. That's what they live for. You know, they live for many different types of supply, but supply is the name of the game. That's their food. I always say it's their food, their lifeblood, their oxygen. It's the only thing that they need. When you get into a car, here you go. You're off to the races. And, you know, so what happens is you're going along and you say something the wrong way, or you look at them wrong, or whatever. The conversation turns, you know, you're on your way to a party or a dinner or somebody's house. And depending on what is going on, their mood may be a certain way. And they may or may not want to go to this place. So it may be that there's already some sort of passive aggression going on. This is very important, especially if they are driving. Now, if they're driving this car, they've got control of the situation, which is already a problem, okay? Because now they've got control over you in that way. There's so many things involved with that because, you know, if they don't want to go to this place, wherever it is that you're going, then there's that underlying resentment that's just below the surface, just below the surface. They could be jealous of the fact that the attention's not going to be on them, jealous of the fact that your attentions are going to be elsewhere, jealous of the fact that attentions are going to be somewhere else. You know, I mean, there's just so much that they could be feeling like they are going to be less than the people that are at that party or whatever it is. Maybe the people that are going to be there are more successful than they are. So there's all kinds of things that are going on. Or it just could be that wherever it is that you're coming from, they're upset about what happened there. Or it could be that you're just fighting about something else in general. It might not be anything that happened at a place that you were just at, or has anything to do with where you're going. It could be that you're fighting about something in your lives. All of this in consideration, now they're driving the car, so they get to use the fact that they're driving this car as an opportunity to control you. So what's one of the ways that they do that? They can start driving erratically. They can start driving violently. So that's number one. They can actually scare you in that way, especially if you're on a freeway or something like that. They can actually start going, oh, okay, and then you're like scared. Please don't do this. Please don't drive. Please don't drive quickly. What are you doing? Please slow down. And they actually think this kind of stuff is funny. And that's the thing that's evil about it, sort of maniacal about it. They enjoy the process of watching you squirm. It's dangerous a lot of times. So, that's number one. Number two is they can oftentimes threaten to kick you out of the car when you don't know where you are. And I've seen, especially, in my days as a divorce attorney, where I've heard stories of that they've actually taken that step where they stopped and made the person get out of the car and left them where they didn't know where they were, or maybe it's miles and miles away from home or something like that. Now, nowadays, I guess if you have your cell phone, you can call for an Uber or whatever. But I've actually also heard stories of where they threw them out, they didn't have their cell phone, or, the other thing that they might do is take your belongings and throw them out the window, take your cell phone, throw it out the window, things like that. That's something else that they might do. All right, so that's number two. Number three is that they can threaten to turn the car around and not go to the event. A lot of times once that narcissistic rage comes flying out, that their narcissistic injury is triggered, because that limbic brain is taken over, that emotional part of their brain has taken over. They don't see reason anymore. It's just that rage has taken over, and that's it. That's what's happening. You are at the effect of their rage at that point. And honestly, at that point, it may be better for you to not be in that car anymore. Where I said number two, where they, make you get out of the car. If you're out of that car and you've got your phone, it may be better for you at some point, because number three is they threaten to turn the car around, threaten to not go to the event. And a lot of times maybe they do that, turn the car around, not go to the event, especially if it's something that's very, very important to you. You've dressed up for it. It's going to make you look very bad if you don't attend, or if you're late, maybe it's something for your work or something like that, especially if it's going to make you look bad if you don't go. They love to do things like that. So that's number three. Number four is they might pick a fight with you and then just not let up. They might just pick at you and keep going, and just this constant verbal assault, especially if it's a long car ride. And why did you do that? And I want answers. And you never told me this. And and just go on and on and on. And as many times as you try to give them answers, and I never said that, and you're twisting my words, and it'll go on and on and on. It just will not let up, because they know that you are in this confined space. And so, your stomach is in knots, and you've got this pain in your chest, and you probably have a headache, and you probably can't breathe. But there you are, you're stuck there because you're in this small, confined space, and it's so tiring, right? I mean, and if any of you have seen this before, give me a totally in the comments. And I would love to know what kinds of things you guys have seen too. Put it in the comments, because I'm sure that you guys have seen something like this as well. So that's number 4. Number 5 is the opposite of number 4. Number 5 might be that you want to talk about something, and you say, this has been in my mind. I really want to talk about something. This is really important to me. Please answer me on something. And then they just refuse to talk at all. Utter silence. Absolutely clam up. Won't speak to you at all. Refuse. Refuse to talk at all. Refuse to give you any answers. Just look forward as if you don't exist whatsoever. Completely ignore you, as if you're not even present. On one hand, it's start a fight, not let up, at you, at you, at you. Or the other one is just completely shut you out, as if you don't exist whatsoever. So that's number 5. Stonewall you completely. Either way, it's you don't get the satisfaction of having healthy communication. Contrast that with healthy communication, which is what you deserve to have as a human being, which is what your soul deserves and what you deserve to have as a human being, which is why you're here watching this video, by the way, because deep in your gut, that that is what you are supposed to be having. I do want you to know that I have phrases for disarming narcissists, and regardless of where you are in life or who you're dealing with, you can start to place some boundaries. So grab your free phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com, which is my gift to you, disarmthenarc.com, and join my free private Facebook group, by the way, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And make sure you start to get the help and support that you need. Okay, and then number 6 is physical abuse, which is completely not okay. So if they start to hit you, if they start to smack you, that is completely a non-starter, completely a non-starter. And that's when you absolutely just need to say, I need to be done with this relationship completely. I mean, really, it's not just boundaries at that point. It's go and, start to plan for your exit. Today, we're going to be talking about the shocking words, the 10 words narcissists just cannot handle. So you can use them at your discretion or not. Never put yourself in any kind of danger, though, of course. Number 1 is empathy. They don't like the word empathy. Why don't they like the word empathy? Well, because they don't have any. And so they struggle to handle the concept of the word empathy as it goes against their self-centered nature. They find it difficult to understand or connect with the word in people's emotions or experiences. So they just shut down when you try to use the word empathy. They get very defensive. They get very angry when you use the word empathy. If you ever try to express your feelings to a narcissist, notice how they dismiss your feelings. They turn the conversation back to themselves, or they fail to acknowledge your feelings. Or if there's a group setting, when somebody tries to share a personal story or a struggle, they respond with a lack of empathy. They try to one up a person, or they show indifference or impatience. They don't like that. They're very uncomfortable with the idea that they might have to show empathy toward a person. That is number one. Number two is accountability. They don't want to have to be accountable. They don't want to have to be held accountable. So they avoid taking responsibility for their actions, and they tend to blame others or external factors for any negative outcomes. The idea of being held accountable threatens their fragile self-image, as it would require admitting flaws or mistakes, projection, deflection, as they normally do. So if you confront a narcissistic person about something that they did wrong, they might deflect the blame onto others, but most often you. If it's a professional setting, it's a coworker's fault, or it was unforeseen circumstances, aunt died. They just try to shift blame onto something or someone else. So accountability is number two. The next one is vulnerability. They do not like vulnerability. So showing emotions, showing their heart, that requires a level of openness that they're uncomfortable with. They fear that it makes them look weak. They don't want to look weak in the eyes of others. They don't want to have to look imperfect. And it undermines this facade that they have. If you've ever seen them, they have like this facade of invincibility, and they want to downplay their struggles. They've got these two halves of themselves. They want to avoid discussing anything about vulnerability, discussing, fears or doubts, or they want to have this unwavering confidence. They want to look like they are perfect at all times. They act like they hate you all half the time. Are you ready to transform lives at the deepest level while also earning money and taking your career to the highest heights? Well, if so, then my brand new Slay Master High Conflict Negotiation Certification Training is exactly what you have been looking for. Get ready to acquire the essential skills necessary to guide your already existing clients or team members through the intricacies of dealing with challenging personalities. Or you can become a brand new certified coach and ignite an amazing new career and start off by knowing that you can make a real difference in people's lives. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm an attorney, and I've been named a best lawyer in America by US News, and I'm also a globally recognized narcissist negotiation expert. I'm also the author of a best-selling book, Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, and I'm the founder of the Slay method of negotiating with high conflict personalities. I am a certified coach also, and as a certified master coach in the Slay method, you will be able to guide your clients or your team members through the complexity of dealing with high conflict or narcissistic personalities, including using the power of my proven Slay method. I've literally helped thousands of people across the globe with this method, and it has saved lives in negotiating people from lives of drama, trauma, and chaos to step into lives of freedom, possibility, and purpose. And you will be able to help them do the exact same thing into finding lives of freedom and ultimately respect, acknowledgement, and that feeling of knowing that you have helped people at their deepest level of their soul, and you will be able to be paid for that. And it's not just about helping others, by the way, it's about investing in yourself and your own future. By joining this training, you will be investing in your own professional growth, enhancing your own quality of life, and unlocking limitless earning potential. Are you ready to take charge of your destiny and help shape the destinies of others while making more money doing it? Then join my free workshop, High Conflict Negotiation Certification. Boost your authority and your income. Discover why high conflict coaches are in huge demand right now, both personally and professionally. Learn how to coach people through crises, master emotional triggers, and conquer their fears, all while boosting your authority and your income. Don't miss out on this exclusive, life-changing opportunity. Just click the link to sign up for this free workshop right now. I have a video on why the narcissist hates you, by the way, which you can definitely check out. And I recommend that you do. That's number 3. Number 4 is forgiveness. I don't want to talk about forgiveness. They hate that word. They struggle to forgive others because it involves letting go. They don't want to have to let go of their need for power and control. Holding grudges is what they want to do. They want to maintain that sense of superiority and see themselves as morally superior to everybody else. And they want to refuse to forgive others. If you've ever dealt with a narcissist in these situations, they hold on to grudges for years and years and years. I've seen narcissists, like, they brought up stuff like nobody has remembered before. Oh, remember that thing that you did to me like 15 years ago, on this trip, and we went out to this dinner or whatever. What in the hell are you talking about? Like, that's what they do. They hold grudges like forever. That is what they do. And if you've seen it, I've seen it in the comments below. I mean, how sad is it to be them, to be walking around with that crap inside of them? It's so poisonous. But if you're dealing with it, it is extremely draining. If you need additional support, make sure that you get the additional therapy that you need, for sure. And if you don't have access to therapy, we do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp, and you can get access to that through betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. We receive commissions on that only because it's a sponsor, but it doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have the help and support that you need. And we have a support group here, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung on Facebook. Join that for sure as well. The next word that they hate is equality. They don't want equality. They don't want things to be equal. They think that they should have it all. They don't want you to have balance. They want all the attention on them and nothing for you. They might say they want things to be equal sometimes, but they don't want that. They want the constant need for validation coming this way, and it threatens their sense of entitlement. And they believe that they should have special treatment and special recognition in a social situation, right? All the attention and everything should be on them. That's why they constantly ruin holidays, which I have a whole video on that too, by the way. In a professional setting, they dismiss everybody else's contributions. They think that their ideas should be more valuable. And then point number 6 is constructive criticism. They hate those words too, because they have extremely fragile egos, so they can't handle criticism. Extremely sensitive. I always say narcissists hear tones like dogs hear whistles. Like, even if you don't have tone, they hear tone, especially any kind of criticism whatsoever. No matter how delicate you try to make it seem, they perceive everything to be a personal attack. They take everything super personally. And that's why they end up like sabotaging themselves and their own lives and their own jobs. If you've ever tried to give a narcissist constructive feedback, they reject any kind of self-improvement or growth. Everything is an attack for them. And at work, team projects, they reject any kind of helpful suggestions, right? They don't want any sort of feedback because it's an attack on their perceived superiority. Point number 7 is the word that they hate is authenticity. They hate the word authenticity because, of course, they're not authentic. Everything about them is fake, including their power. Their sense of power is totally fake. So that's why I always say to you, the power that you're building through this knowledge and becoming the truest, most powerful version of yourself self is actually authentic, and their power is built on a house of cards. What you're building right here is true, authentic power. And once you get on the other side of this, you will become the most powerful version of yourself. And that means building your true love, your self-love, flaws and all. They don't have that. Brene Brown talks about the power of vulnerability, and that's what you are building here. You're building that. They constantly are wearing masks, and when they are confronted or exposed, they react to that through anger, through lies, through avoiding facing the truth. That's how you best build your leverage. And that's how you build it through my SLAY methodology, through my strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you. And if you don't have Crush My Negotiation Prep Worksheet, grab that at winmynegotiation.com. It's a free 15-page ebook to help you start winning your negotiation. Grab that now at winmynegotiation.com because it will help you get started in winning your negotiation. The next word that they hate is boundaries. They hate the word boundaries, of course, because they don't think they should have any. I mean, they want full and total control, right? As soon as you throw up a boundary, they want to just step right over it because they believe that everything and everyone belongs to them. They see people as property. A boundary is just a challenge for them. They want to just cross it as soon as you put it up. But you have to maintain your boundary. You have to say, as soon as I'm putting up a boundary, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to fix it, and keep it fixed. They're going to ignore your space and disregard your boundaries. So regardless of their feelings, you've got to take care of yourself. And then number 9, the next word that they hate is emotional intimacy. They want to know everything about you, but they're not going to tell you anything about them. They don't want closeness. They don't want to be exposed. They don't want that potential criticism or rejection because they want things to remain superficial. They don't want emotional intimacy. They don't want that deep connection. They feel very at risk with emotional vulnerability. They struggle very much. They choose instead to focus on outside things, external validation and accomplishments and external admiration. And then the last one is self-reflection. They're not doing any sort of self-reflection, and they don't want anyone to even think about coming to them for self-reflection, self-awareness, and they run like hell. It's like, vampires with daylight with self-reflection. So that's why they don't want to go to therapy or anything like that. I mean, if they're forced to go to any sort of like marriage counseling or anything like that, it's just a big scam. It's just a big manipulation scam to try to make everybody think that the other person is the bad one and they're the good one, because they're not going to do any sort of self-reflection. They're desperately trying to avoid looking like they're the ones that need to take any sort of accountability. They have to keep this self-perceived image of perfection. They have to do this project, deflect, lying and denying. And that's what they're going to constantly do. They're never going to self-reflect. That's why a lot of times people who are mental health professionals won't even take narcissists as clients because they're not even capable of self-reflecting or having any sort of self-awareness. Those are the 10 words, the 10 shocking words that narcissists just can't handle. I would love to know which one is your favorite, which of the ones that you've tried, that you have seen. The one that I didn't include in here is narcissist, because obviously they don't love that word either. But these are definitely other words that they just cannot stand. I mean, definitely an eye-opening, shocking words that they just can't handle when you're trying to have a conversation with them, when you're trying to have a normal, reasonable, regular relationship with a narcissist. These are just regular words that you would want to be able to have a conversation or be able to connect with a person with, and you're just not going to be able to. Okay, how to identify a narcissist from conversation. 8 ways, telltale signs that you're talking to somebody and you're like, yeah, that person's definitely a narcissist. And it's not what you might think. It's not saying something good about themselves, okay? Just because somebody says, I'm good at something, or yeah, I did a good job, that does not make that person a narcissist. That's okay. It's all right if somebody says something good about themselves. Actually, we should encourage people to say something good about themselves. Now, a narcissist is a person who actually, they're a self-centered person. It's never about anybody else other than themselves. Okay. So this is a person who, number one, probably interrupts a lot. The other person is talking, and literally mid-sentence, they're just so completely oblivious to the fact that another person is talking, they just start interrupting. And they don't even realize that the other person is talking. They don't go, oh, I'm sorry, you were saying something, go ahead, or whatever. They just start talking. And especially, if it's like early on in the relationship or something like that, and just let the other person just go, especially if they're just mostly talking about themselves or, something in their own lives or whatever. That's like definitely a telltale sign. Number one, they interrupt a lot. Number two is they never stop talking about themselves. They're just, during an early phase of the relationship, you should be hearing questions about you. Tell me about you. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your job. The person should be interested in, or at least feign interest in you. This is a person who, like, if all they can't do is to talk about themselves, you might as well be a piece of furniture on the other side of the table. That's going to be a problem. Okay. They don't stop talking about themselves. The next one is they don't even stop to ask about you. I've noticed this even long into relationships with people sometimes. I remember having a client one time who was always, a fixture. Basically, he became a fixture in our office because he was just so wrapped up in his case, and he was, so worried about his kids all the time. And he was a likable guy in a lot of ways. And he became, really close to one of my paralegals. He became really close to one of my associates. My whole staff got to know him pretty well because, his case was like going on forever and everybody got to, be a part of it. But then one of my paralegals said, I just kind of noticed that, he was never really interested in anybody else other than himself. Like, he never really asked about what was going on in any of our lives. He never asked about me or my kids or anything like that. And she just got tired of it because she just felt like he didn't really care about anybody but himself. And so she just, eventually, when the case was over, the guy, I guess, thought that he was going to become friends with our paralegal or some of the other staff or whatever. And she was just like, no, I just feel like he's just too self-centered. It was like one thing when the case was going, because obviously everything was about him, but she just said, like, even when the case wrapped up, he still continued to not be interested in anybody but himself. So, if a person doesn't ever stop to ask about you, that could be a really big red flag. Or maybe number four, maybe they do stop to ask about you, but they don't stop to listen to the answer, or they're not interested in the answer. I know I've definitely been at cocktail parties or barbecues or social functions where somebody has asked me, how are things at work or whatever, how's everything? And then I start to answer them, and then they start looking at their phone. Or they start looking around and, maybe there's somebody, they're looking for somebody more interesting to talk to, or they're kind of half listening to the answer, and you start going, well, maybe it's not all that interesting. Like, you don't really care about like answering the question because they're not really all that interested in hearing about it anyway. So whatever. Like if somebody asks about you or what's going on, and then they don't really listen to the answer, or they're not interested, or maybe they just kind of like interrupt the answer halfway through, then that's another part of it too. That might be a telltale sign that the person is a narcissist. Is this resonating with you guys so far? Give me a yes in the chat. How many of you guys have seen any of these so far? I'm sure that you've seen them so far. Number 5 is constant criticism of others. They're just judgy. These are super judgy people. They're just, oh, this person is that, this person is that, my ex was this. They're just constantly wanting to like talk about other people. Everybody is a problem, constantly criticizing other people. You know, that just is low vibrational energy. And that is just a no zone for me at this point in my life anymore. I don't feel like having it around. No, I want good people in my life, high vibration people, happy people. So if that's something that's happening, then I'm thinking that's not a good person. Another sign. Number 6 is gaslighting. They're talking and they're saying something and they literally just said something to make you crazy. So I had the funniest conversation with somebody recently. He was a friend of mine who happens to be Chinese, and he was talking about how his grandma, literally, it's a funny gaslighting example where he was saying that his grandma got in a car accident and she was kind of like gaslighting the person that she hit, because it happened to be like a 16-year-old where it was like basically her fault. And she got out and she was like, it's okay, you know, you're an inexperienced driver. Like basically like trying to make it seem like it was his fault. Obviously, I don't think his grandma is a narcissist, but I don't know. But, you know, basically gaslighting the other person, like that's a way to identify a narcissist from conversation. They try to make the other person think they're crazy. Number 7 is lack of interest in others. Like they're just not interested in anyone else either. So, you know, I've been talking about not interested in you or the other person, like whoever it is that they're talking to, but they're just not really interested in anyone else either. They're just only interested in themselves. So that's number 7. And number 8, inability to accept any form of criticism at all. And even like the slightest thing, sometimes they take things as slights or criticisms that aren't slights or criticism. When you're saying something about them, they take things as slights or criticisms that actually aren't. There's a discrepancy in the bill at the restaurant or something, and they take that as like personal affront or something. I mean, I remember being with a family member one time who was dating somebody who was, you know, a little bit crazy. And the person was like upset because they didn't get as many French fries as other people. And they take that as like a personal affront. Things that are like, they just see things that aren't there kinds of things, you know. So inability to take slights or criticisms, that can be a massive, huge problem. And you can identify narcissists that way as well. One secret tactic that is guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is narcissistic fluffing. And I know this seems so crazy, but it's bartering to get what you want. I call it fluff for favor, vomit later. So what you do is you ethically manipulate the manipulator. You go up to them and you say, hey, can you do the QuickBooks? You are so much better at it than I am. And so then you get something that you want. They do it. And then, you know, if you need to go vomit or shower later, that's fine. But you got something that you wanted, and it puts them in their place. You got something that you wanted, and they're none the wiser, right? So it's a little secret tactic that's guaranteed to put them in their place. You take your ego out of it. Fluff or favor, vomit later. So that's one secret tactic that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place. Another secret tactic to put a narcissist in their place, it's a great way to gather leverage against them, is to keep them talking. They have no idea what you're doing. They love to talk about themselves. They love to tell you all about what's going on. And then you will figure out what's actually motivating them. Remember that what really motivates a narcissist is how they look to the world. what I call diamond level supply. That supply that feeds them, that motivates them, is their ego. So it could be that new girlfriend, or that the employees that they work with, whoever it is that makes them, that beefs up their ego the most in the world. It could be those A-level look to the world, what I call diamond level supply. That supply that feeds them, that motivates them, is their ego. So it could be that new girlfriend, or that the employees that they work with, whoever it is that makes them, that beefs up their ego the most in the world. It could be those A-level look to the world, what I call diamond level supply. That supply that feeds them, that motivates them, is their ego. So it could be that new girlfriend, or that the employees that they work with, whoever it is that makes them, that beefs up their ego the most in the world. It could be those A-level look to the world, what I call diamond level supply. That supply that feeds them, that motivates them, is their ego. So it could be that new girlfriend, or that the employees that they work with, whoever it is that makes them, that beefs up their ego, took the time to put all of that together. Now remember to use one form of writing as much as possible with them, because if you use text, or if you use all these different forms of email, or all these different forms of other types of writing, they will use all these different ways to make your life miserable. They're DMing you in your Instagram, in all these different forms, and it drives you absolutely crazy. And on top of that, if you end up having to go to trial with them, you're trying to remember, where was that? Where did that come in? Did that come in through my Facebook messaging? Did that come in through my Instagram messaging? Where did that come in from? And you don't want to have to deal with all of that, and you don't want to have to try to remember that. So you want to try to keep your writing in one form as much as possible. And you really should have it be email if possible. Really should be email if possible, because if it's email, then you have a time and date stamp. It's something that's provable, and it's the least likely to be manipulated down the road. When it becomes a trial exhibit, they're much more difficult to be entered into as evidence, because when you go to use them as trial exhibits, they want the entire conversation usually. And so texts are not usually great for trial exhibits. You usually need to have an entire conversation, and that's why email serves as a better form of writing. And I really do recommend that when you're talking to narcissists, because they will lie. They literally will say something and then completely contradict themselves in just one conversation later. They will say, I don't want to have to be in this job anymore, or whatever they say. And then 10 minutes later, they'll say, I never said that, as if you are dealing with an insane person. So as much as possible, you want to have them be in conversation with you in writing. And a lot of this, by the way, is in my Slay program. But one of the ways that you can really start to gather all of this is by using my Crush My Negotiation Prep Worksheet. It's a 15-page ebook, which you can definitely get at winmynegotiation.com and get that free ebook and get started with that. If you know, it's everything all in one place. So go get that to get started. Okay, so number 4 is call them out when things aren't adding up. When they literally just say, I didn't say that, you can just say, but you did. You can actually, you have the right during conversations to say, I can see that you are saying things to me that aren't truthful, or we can resume this conversation when you're ready to have a conversation with me that is truthful, or something like that. I mean, call them out when things aren't adding up. But, you do need to be careful, because if you are dealing with somebody who is volatile, then you don't want to put yourself in any kind of harm's way. You certainly don't want to do that. Other thing I do want to caution you on with this particular one is that if you are going back to number 3, where you are catching them in lies in their writings and things like that, you don't want to let on that you know what you have. All right. So be careful about that. The next one is act like you don't care. That is guaranteed to put them in their place, because if you don't care, then it just absolutely drives them bonkers. They just can't stand it when you don't care what's going on. Nothing drives a narcissist crazy like your complacency, like your apathy. That's the one thing they want more than anything, is your rise, you to be engaged with them. But if it's sort of like a pushback thing where you're not pushing back, then they don't have anything giving them that supply. If you see the truth in what I'm saying so far, put truth in the comments below, because you know that what I'm saying is the truth. The next secret that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is stop defending yourself. When you defend yourself, you are literally saying to them that there is something there. You're giving credence to their arguments, and you definitely don't want to do that. Never explain, never justify, never overshare, never defend yourself. You can stand in your power. When things are filed, motions are filed, when letters come over, I know that that's your first inclination, is to go, oh my gosh, you want to defend yourself on everything, point by point by point. I know I do too, but do not defend yourself. That's number 6. Another secret tactic that's guaranteed to put a narcissist in their place is to stand your ground when they try to move goalposts. Certainly don't negotiate against yourself. I've seen people do this all the time. Well, they haven't responded. Let me go back and maybe reduce or something. No, stand your ground, especially when they try to move goalposts. You stay firm. Do not allow them to do that. When they move those goalposts around, they are jerking you around, and they're getting supply from that, and don't allow them to do that. They're doing that because they want to see that rise from you. Don't allow that. Let it go. The next thing is to create strategy before making your moves. It is so common when you're dealing with a narcissist to feel you're constantly in survival mode, and you just are swinging all the time, and you feel like you're just putting out fires constantly, and you don't have time to sit back and create a vision and to create an action plan. But you need to create that strategy before you make your moves, and then you will be standing in power, and you will actually get to the goal of where you want to go. It will be so much more powerful for you. The next thing is to create invincible leverage. Going back to what I said in number 3, which is where I started to create the foundation for this, is to create almost like an invisible fence around that narcissist, once that fence becomes visible, it's almost like turning on the light and they realize, oh my goodness, I'm cornered. It'll be so much more powerful for you. I'm setting you up for the SLAY methodology here. You see that? Strategy, leverage, anticipating where they're going, being 2 steps ahead of them. And then finally, number 10 is focusing on you being on the offensive, your incredible 100% super powerful mindset. You have to believe that you can win before anybody else can help you. But if you don't believe that you can win, nobody can help you. You have to believe it. And then that's the most powerful secret tactic that's guaranteed to make sure that you are going to be the most powerful person in whatever room that you stand up in. Because let me tell you, there are always going to be narcissists in this world. They will always be toxic no matter where you go. But if you focus on your powerful mindset and how strong you are, that's kryptonite to narcissists, right?